Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Schulz. This week we're in North America, and although that does not mean we're going to be just in the United States, it does mean we're going to start there, because to many folks, and to me included, North American folklore wouldn't be the same without Charles Skinner. So we're going to start this week of North American stories off with Charles Skinner's Chief Croton. Between the island of Manhattoes and the Catskills, the Hudson shores were plagued with spooks, and even as late as the 19th century Hans Andersen, a man who tilled farm back of Peekskill, was worried into his grave by the leaden likeness of a British spy whom he had hanged on General Putnam's orders. Old Put doubtless enjoyed immunity from this vexatious creature because he was born with few nerves. A region especially afflicted was the confluence of the Croton and the Hudson, for the Kitchawan burying ground was here, and the red people being disturbed by the tramping of white men over their graves, the walking sachems of Teller's Point were nightly to be met on their errands of protest. These Indians had built a palisade on Croton Point, and here they made their last stand against their enemies from the north. Throughout the fight, old Chief Croton stood on the wall with arrows showering around him, and directed the resistance with the utmost calm. Not until every one of his men was dead, and the fort was going up in flame about him, did he confess defeat. Then, standing amid the charring timbers, he used his last breath in calling down the curse of the Great Spirit against the foe. As the victorious enemy rushed into the enclosure to secure the scalps of the dead, he fell lifeless into the fire, and their jubilant yell was lost upon his ears. Yet he could not rest, nor bear to leave his ancient home even after death, and often his form, in musing attitude, was seen moving through the woods. When a manor was built on the ruins of his fort, he appeared to the master of it, to urge him into the Continental army, and, having seen his behest obeyed, laid a solemn injointure to keep the freedom of the land forever. Then he vanished, and never appeared again. And that is the New York, sort of upstate, depending on who you ask, the New York story of Chief Croton. And in it we have something kind of unusual for Skinner, in that we have a Native American chief, although he's using the term red people here, a Native American chief who is honored mostly for helping a large landowner decide to join the Continental Army, but he is still honored nonetheless. And the fight here is not necessarily between the settlers and the Native Americans. It's interesting for Skinner. This is Dan Schulz for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere that you like to get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere that you like to listen, including YouTube. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And tomorrow, as promised, we're going to leave the United States and head north for a Canadian folktale out of Cyrus Macmillan's Canadian Fairy Tales. Thank you so much for listening.